Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest installment of Mondays with Meaning. We're moving into the last week of the year, if you can believe it. Wow, 2020 has been an interesting one, hasn't it? I am Angela Ward, registered nurse, transformational coach, and CEO of the Guardian at the Gateway. I'm here to help you find some passion and purpose in your life, especially if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you know what to do, but you need a little more support in figuring out the steps and having a little accountability and all of that. So here we are together. I'm hopeful that some of these ideas will resonate with you and uh, yeah, help you achieve the life you want. So if you're watching live, please say hello. Please give me some hearts and likes and emojis so I know that you're here. And if you're watching the replay, please just put replay in the comments and let me know what's coming up for you. Today, we're going to talk about integration and intention setting. These are two themes that are an essential part of psychedelic therapy, where I have a bunch of training and work in that field. But I think it really applies to looking at the end of 2020 and wrapping into 2021. Oh, hi, Joe. I'm glad you're watching. Thanks for saying hello. So, one of the wonderful things about psychedelic therapy is that it really helps people to make meaning of their experiences in their life. And boy, if this year has not needed some help making meaning from, right? This has been challenging. So if anyone's had a problem, a challenge this year, I don't know if problem's the right word, but it's been a challenging year. Maybe raise your hand or me too. Oh my gosh. And even in that, there can be some real beautiful experiences. It can definitely be a challenging year. But we're going to use this concept to make a meaning of 2020, but then also to set intentions and some plans moving into this next cycle, this next year. The goal of psychedelic therapy is really to awaken and align with that internal wisdom, our internal compass. Maybe you'd call it your soul. Maybe you'd call it the part of you that's very intelligent, that's kind of like has that longing for things to be in a different and better way. Like something is cold, is almost there, but not quite within your grasp. So we're gonna need to tap into that and use that wise part of ourselves to find this meaning and create intention. So, there's a couple tools that I would request that you use for this practice. I would love you to have something to write on, and you don't have to do this right now. You can work on this during the week, but you need something to write on and something to write with. And then also access to your calendar, your journals, maybe your emails, different things that's going to give you a chance to review. And then we're also going to talk about planning and where we're going. So, every new year, a practice that my husband and I share or have shared during our marriage is to do a year in review. And I'm really inviting you to do this in a little bit different way. Something I'm learning the more I work with my clients is that while we don't want to get attached to the story of our lives, we're not wanting to spin the story over and over again. Sometimes it's really important to put the whole story together first before we get hooked and attached to it. So, what I mean is maybe you had a struggle this month, and a couple months later, you had another struggle, and then another thing happened. And while we're immersed in that experience, they kind of come up as just those individual things. But being able to stand back and put all of the pieces in order can really give us an appreciation for the journey that we've been on in this last year, particularly. So what my husband and I will do is I get a beautiful piece of paper. He does this in a different format, but I like to get a really pretty piece of paper. I usually do black paper with a gold pen. And on this paper, I will review each month. So I don't write a whole lot of details about the month, but I'll look through my calendar and kind of pull out what things occurred, or maybe emails of things that occurred that were kind of milestones along the way. They could have been negative, positive, it doesn't really matter. Just, or maybe when you started something or when you completed something, or a birthday or celebration or momentous event. Um, I try to write it in a really like beautiful cursive or almost calligraphy kind of style. So it has some significance to it. And I'll do a block for each month: January, February, March. And I work all the way through that. And it takes me a little time to do this. And then it's really lovely to do this with your family or with your friends or your housemates, because then when you can share these after you've kind of completed it, you can compare notes and be like, oh, yeah, I forgot that one thing. That was a really big deal. Being able to then share all of these things and look at it in the arc of the year can really allow you to feel perhaps a sense of accomplishment, or a sense of profundity, perhaps, of the things that this in the story of you've experienced in this last year. This is just the first step, though, is this integration piece. We first have to kind of see where the journey has taken us over this year. And I think it's important as you're doing this practice to really recognize where you were at the new year last year. Where were you? I mean, physically, yes, but also like emotionally, in your heart, in your relationships. Where were you? And where have you landed as the planets have turned back to this place, this new year that's coming up? And then the second piece is from this collection of the highlights of your year is to set the intention for the next, for 2021. I've heard it said, and I'm sure you've heard me say it more than once, that an intention is an arrow drawn from the quiver of your heart. And what that means, for people that don't know what a quiver is, that's what arrows are stored in. You put your arrows back here and then you pull them out and shoot them, right? So, but this quiver is this wise part of ourselves. I orient it in here. I don't feel like it exists in my head, but maybe for you it's in a different place. Maybe it's your belly, or maybe it's just a concept. But the intention is really to speak to this wiser part of yourself, and then to aim your arrow, taking some time to imagine where you would like to find yourself when we cycle back to New Year at the next year. So, this is the secret though. Before you do this, you've got to spend a little time getting connected to that internal healing wisdom within yourself. And one beautiful way to access that is to work with a bit of a gratitude practice. So, after I've completed the year long review, it often will inspire gratitude in me, that I'm like, wow, I had that experience with that person, or I had that insight or that learning, or find ways to start bringing a little bit of that gratitude up, because that is the emotion of manifestation. Let me say that again. Gratitude is the emotion of manifestation. The way that you can feel when you have that humble, thankful feeling is the place from which to dream. That's connecting to that internal wisdom of what you want to feel like at the end of next year. This is not a plan for you to be like, well, next year I want to lose 20 pounds and I want to make sure that I travel to the Grand Caymans. Or it's not, that's not necessarily what I'm asking here. When I'm asking that we're setting an intention, I would love for you to imagine if you could awaken that inner self in a deeper way. How might you feel in that more aligned way? Might you feel more loving? Might you feel more connected to your community? Might you feel more at peace? That's what I'm going for. Is I'm looking for a little bit more of that, aiming the arrow towards where you want to land when you look back. Does that make sense? If this is making sense, give me a little comment. I hope this is kind of resonating a little bit. So, with intentions, it's really helpful. It's absolutely imperative to have goals, things like that. And that's something that we can work on in this group. I can certainly help you with goal setting and achievement. But I had a client recently tell me that um, it's not so much the doing of the acts, but the embodiment and feeling of the acts. So many of us understand the need for self care, right? And you can even like put it on your calendar and do the things that feed your self care. There's my little sacred temple bell saying that this is important. You can do the acts, but without that sensation of the balance of love, creativity, and wisdom, like these pieces that give it a richness, that give it meaning instead of just faking it through the steps, that is how we change and embody this intention. Another piece I'd love you to do if you review this year would be to really take a moment to look at the lessons and insights that you've gained in 2020. I think there are so many cultural things that came to life here. So many more things that we came to understand as a society. And from that kind of lesson and insight, there's going to be pieces in there that you'll understand have importance to you, that are things you'll want to plant into this intention. Does that make sense? What I'm saying is maybe through the Black Lives Matter protest, for example, you became awakened to a deeper sense of injustice in our society that you hadn't experienced before. And although that might be a painful realization or whatever it is, this is just an example. Maybe you have a vow or a intention, right? To not let those shadows get thrown across your eyes again, that you are going to stay awake to that injustice and perhaps find your own way to serve in transmuting it. I don't know what that would mean for you, but for me, I do really recognize how, I mean, that was a really, really intense part of this last year. And I vow to find more ways to be accessible and inclusive while also being humble and learning. And, that's just kind of off the cuff. I haven't dove into my practice yet myself for this year in review. So, those are a couple ideas. Please recognize that we can create ways to feel that we want to feel. We can. And I'm not talking about feeling a certain way because you are spiritually bypassing or you're ignoring the reality of the world. I think there are many ways, and this is also a lesson from psychedelic therapy, is that we can expand this capacity to have a greater awareness of injustice, but also joy, or, you know, gratitude and maybe some shame about the state of the world or personal behaviors. Um, we can have this wider capacity and still find a more grounded centeredness within our own internal wise self. That is, the more we can allow that part of ourselves to lead, I think the more that we can create a more just and beautiful world. That's my fantasy, of course, but that's where I'm setting my intention. What else? Is this bringing up any ideas for you? So just to review, my request and practice for this week that I'm going to do, and I'd love you to join me on this, is to review and create a beautiful piece of art, essentially, of my year, including some of the details around specific events or insights or things I've started or stopped or important things like that. Um, I'm going to share that with my beloved so we can kind of compare notes and celebrate each other's wins and to acknowledge each other's failings or places where we would have hoped to do better. And then from that hopefully inspired sense of gratitude by looking back at the arc of the story of the year, my intention is then to spend a lot of time creating a plan of where I'd like to be at the end of 2021, how I would like to feel, what are important things that I have become aware of that I would like to amplify in my life, I guess is the way to say it. Things that I really want to amplify or pay attention to help grow in my life. And yeah, and to write about it so that when I do look back, if the stars align to let me return to this time and place, the spiral to the next winter solstice, Christmas, New Year's, that I can see perhaps where I have made some achievement and maybe where I haven't. So that's my hope for all of us. I'm excited for this next year because 2020 has been a very powerful one, really painful for some people and really wonderful in other ways, complex, definitely. So, that being said, that concludes my talk about integration and intention setting. But I think, I don't know, as becoming my practice, this when I do these is to draw a little card. So I'm going to draw something to give us a lens to contemplate as we transition through this New Year's. Uh, do I want the spirit animal or do I want the Voyager? I think Voyager seems more appropriate. That's this one. Do you know what this is? This is a statue, a real statue. I think it's Aztec, of someone who would take someone else's skin off and wear it. But I think they were probably having some secret insight. So our last card was this beautiful growth card. That was so lovely. But we're going to do something different. So I'm going to shuffle this, just holding loosely the request that one of these cards gives us a perspective to consider as we review 2020 and as we set our intentions, and not resolutions, mind you. These aren't resolutions. These are not like a resolve to go to the gym 5 days a week. That's a goal and a habit you want to build in. It's not a resolution. We're talking about intention for this next year related to how we feel, or vows of things we want to keep. So that's what I'm asking this little deck to give me insight around. I think it's going to be this one. So what is this one going to be? The card we got. Can you see this? Compassion. We're going to put my head that I can see you. This card is compassion. So you can see, oh gosh, there's a lot going on in this card. It has, what's over here? Oh, a butterfly on someone's finger, a sun. Let me see what else I notice on here. Looks like a mountain and like a Krillian imprint hand, a rose, lightning, clouds, a mountain. Okay, let me read this. So this was the lens to look through our year in review. Actually, compassion is perfect for it. It's a 3 of Wands. So if other people follow The tarot wands are generally in this deck about spirit. I'm going to turn my light on so I can see a little bit better as I read this to you. Maybe I can hold it up so you can look at it a bit. Okay. It says, the wand attributes symbolize your spirit, just so you know. All the wand cards in this tarot contain some form of light or fire. So the Three of Wands, compassion. Your hand, like the Buddha's, is a wand of compassionate golden light. Being compassionate, you possess Buddha-like empathy and tolerance. As suggested by the hand with the butterfly, you are receptive and accepting of yourself and others. Like the sun, you extend through the warmth of your sun ray fingers the healing, life giving energy, which is symbolized by the Carillion auric photograph of healer Olga Worrell's warm and magical touch. So, if you're watching the replay or if you have a chance to watch this and kind of contemplate this, I'd love to know how compassion relates to you integrating 2020 and as you set an intention for 2021. I think it's lovely and I'm super excited about it. All right, my friends, so good to be here with you today. Just to remind you that enrollment is currently open for the Full Spectrum Vitality Collective starting in January, and I'd love to have you be part of that if that's an interest to you. Also, I think there's going to be another teaching coming up mid-January. I think we're going to do another Disrupt the Disruptor and perhaps spread it out for a week and do a little bit more diving in depth to each one of those areas. So if that sounds interesting to you, let me know. I've been just thinking about it today, so it seems like it might be a good tool to help us out in the middle of January. All right, love to you all. Thank you.